And great. So we're just about to go live.
Very good.
Okay. So here we go. And I'm here with Britney Gardner. And we had some technical difficulties, so we're going to get started. But hi, and welcome, Britney. Thanks so much for joining me on this live stream this morning.
Yeah, no problem. I'm so happy to be here and get talking to you and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so we are starting late, so my apologies to anybody who's tuning in right at 9. This is a brand new app and our first time doing this, and we tested it, and so strange. It just didn't want to work, and then I tried it again and it did, so I have no idea what happened. But we're actually now, I think we're actually on my timeline, I popped over to my Compass Rose video page and then kind of popped back. So anyway, we're here. How are you this morning, Britney?
I'm actually doing very well, so things are good right now.
Good, great. And so let's just launch in, and I hope the people have found us this morning on this live stream. So I'm going to read your bio here. So Britney Gardner is a brand strategist and marketing photographer who translates what it feels like to work with you into branding. So you can use to build a business full of the best clients for you. She's the creator of the Badass brand and host of the Know, Like, and Trust Show, which is an awesome podcast. And Britney serves entrepreneurs who are ready to level up to the premium clients they've been waiting for. So I'm so happy to talk to you. I know that I was very happy to be a guest on your podcast, so there might be a little overlap with some of the content. But yeah, so I have some questions for you. Should we just dive in?
Let's go for it.
Okay, do it. So I'm so curious to know, what is your secret to getting your clients whom you photograph for your, branding specials and packages? What's your secret to getting your clients to show up as their best authentic selves in front of the camera?
Yeah, so I'll first start out by saying, it's not a one size fits all kind of, thing here, but definitely me being real in front of my own clients has been the easiest thing I can do for them to show up and be real in front of me. It's not like a one-sided street here. It's
interesting.
It's something that people definitely need to know, that you're willing to actually see them. And the best way to do that is to show yourself.
Wow, that's very cool. I hadn't really thought of it that way. Now, how did you come to that? I imagine, there's some trial and errors. There has been for me in Jeff doing the video, but in terms of, how did you first kind of show up as on the other side of the camera? And how did you kind of learn that important lesson?
Yeah, so one of the things that made me realize what was going on, first of all, was realizing that people come into my studio, right? And sometimes I just started photographing and people were great and I didn't really have to say anything. And of course I got something in my eye right when we started talking.
Of course, but, it's live, it happens.
It's live, right? Yeah. But yeah, some clients just, come in, I almost always include hair and makeup in my shoots. So they come in and get that done. And then I usually start photographing people seated because I find it to be a little bit easier for most people to not have to worry about their entire body right away.
Right.
People just kind of plop down on the stool and open up and have a beautiful, engaging, and connected smile right from the get-go. But
right.
For the people who didn't do that, there were times I struggled, and I was sitting here thinking, what is the difference? Well, some people are just kind of more naturally comfortable regardless of what kind of situation they're in. But what I finally came to realize is when I had expectations about how something would go, no matter what it was, that created a bit of a wall. When I was maybe not feeling 100% myself, that created a bit of a wall. And when I, had other things that were distracting me in life, that was a bit of a wall. And the common denominator from all of those is me. So if that's the problem, then I had to look at what I was doing. And what it really was is if I have expectations or distractions, then I'm not fully present myself. I'm not being my true self as a brand strategist or a branding photographer. And that was what was creating the wall. So once I figured that out, things got a lot easier. And there was one defining client where I really figured this out from. It was someone I truly respected. I think they have it all together. Everything just goes well for them. It's like one of those people where you're like, well, of course, it's so easy for you to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And that person came into my studio and was awkward. And it was a rough start, and she knows that I've talked about this, so I won't be calling out anyone by name, but I just called her out and said, hey, what's going on here? Like, this is not you. And what she said was something along the lines of, I just had a really rough morning. And it just like clicked with me, and I was like, ding, ding, ding. I didn't have a rough morning that day, but that was kind of the thing. Like, if I was distracted, if I wasn't bringing my A game, it always affected my clients. And when she said it that way to me, I was like, that's exactly what I've been mirroring here. So once I figured that out and realized that I need to be a little bit vulnerable if I want to expect my clients to open up and let me truly see them, it just got so much better from there.
Wow, that is so fascinating for so many reasons. So, first of all, just the realization that it really kind of starts with you. And that thing of, and this is so important, I think, in not only, our business, helping people appear on camera, but also in business and in life, that thing of expectations and learning to let go of those expectations. Because it puts so much pressure on the situation, and also that thing of, so it sounds like some check-in time. So sometimes it's just really important, like especially if you just feel something's off, like whether it's in yourself or your client, just giving yourself the gift and your client the gift of that time to kind of check in and have a conversation. Can be really helpful.
Yeah, and I think calling things a spade, right? Did we get an echo? I think calling things out for what they are is really helpful. Do you hear that, or is it just me?
I don't hear that.
All right, I got myself echoing. I'll just ignore it.
Okay.
It's okay to not be perfect, and I think as the expert on my side of the camera, or for you and your husband or whatever, it's sometimes there's this pressure to feel like exactly what you're doing, you have it all together, however you want to talk about that. I think it's okay to admit, hey, this isn't working. There's sometimes I put someone in a position or even just a background's not jiving with what's going on, and if I keep trying to make it work, or I used to do this. It's been years since I've done this, but if I asked a client to do something in a certain situation and it wasn't working, I would just power through to make them think I was getting good stuff, right? And people can tell, there's like a thing going on. You can call it energy. You can just call it awkwardness, whatever you want to label it is fine. But I think it's okay to say, hey, this isn't working. Let's move on. And I think clients respect you for doing that. And if you're able to do that about everything, I think everything else just kind of flows much better. And it's the same thing I did with that client. Like, hey, what's going on here? This is not you. Like, what's going on? And that time it wasn't necessarily about me, but if I can do that same thing for myself, it takes the pressure off the client to perform in a way. I mean, I want my clients to show me the real them. I don't want them to put on a facade. So if I feel like there's a facade there, I find it easier just to say, hey, I'm taking responsibility for this. I did something wrong. Let's reset. So.
Right. I love that so much. Okay. So what is the biggest mistake that you have, in your accumulated years of experience that you think people make when it comes to, they're getting their pictures done, their headshots, their branding photos. So what's the biggest mistake that you see over and over and over again in people's pictures?
It's the facade. Yeah. I mean, I've said it a few times. I'll explain it differently in this context, but it's the same thing I used to see in previous businesses. People would be like, hey, I'm rebranding. These are my 6 logo options from my logo designer. Which one do you like best? There's about 1,000 things wrong with that. The main 2 being, 1, don't ask your colleagues what logo you should pick. Ask your best clients, because they're the ones who have actually given you money and will continue to give you money, hopefully. 2, your logo is not a rebrand. And I feel the exact same way about branding photos. I Obviously, I
Okay.
think they're incredibly important, but I do think they're just a small part of the visual representation of your brand. And if you don't
Hmm.
know the underlying pinnings of your brand, your pictures are just pictures. And one of the things I like to say is just being pretty isn't enough. I very strongly believe that there's this trend, and I'm not in favor of it, which, all these like life coaches and business coaches go to Paris and they get pictures with the Eiffel Tower in the background because, I don't know, there's some girl thing with Paris, who knows? But it's not representative of most people who are doing it.
Right.
If you can give me a really valid reason for doing that, that has branding foundations at its core, I'm all for it. But for
Right.
most people, it doesn't tell a real story. Like if your real story is, hi, I fly around Paris looking pretty, then,
Yeah.
well, I'm not going to hire you as a coach, but by all means do it. I think there's so
Right.
many other ways to show what it really feels like to work with you.
Hmm.
And you got to look to your own self, your own core values. You got to look to the story that's led you to where you are today. And you've got to look at the results that you offer your clients. And from there, figure out a visual representation of your brand.
Right. That is so cool. I think that's absolutely spot on. So you talked about figure out what your brand underpinnings are. And I've also heard the term like brand pillars.
Mm-hmm.
So how should somebody figure out what exactly their brand pillars are? Because I know I've experienced this. I'm guessing that you have too, that sometimes people think that something is a pillar of their brand, and in actuality it's really not. It's not how they're perceived or what they lead with or what people hire them for.
I believe it's based largely on your core values. And I'll expand a little bit on that. So some of my core values are really obvious. Like I have a very high value for aesthetics. Well, I'm a visual person. It's really
Right.
no surprise. But my nature and aesthetics like value, it's beyond just what looks pretty. Like I truly appreciate a refined and well-crafted cocktail. I appreciate it for like the work that goes in, the intent,
Right.
the perfect balance. I also like probably should never ever be allowed to drive when there's really fluffy clouds and those, rays of sunlight shine through, because I get so distracted by it. Because I think it's so incredibly beautiful, and the fact that
Right.
I can't make it happen all the time makes it even more beautiful because I'm not in control, right? So what I do in photography, it pulls a lot from my aesthetics value, but the underpinning, the brand foundation, is that I appreciate well-crafted items. I appreciate nature as it comes, so
Hmm.
that's something that will never leave. And every piece of work I've ever done, and any experience I've had that really just kind of shapes who I am, there's always some area of it that honors that aesthetics value.
Yeah.
I also value mastery. I value personal power. One of the reasons after I left the first business I started and started working more in this area, one of the reasons I did was because I had been feeling pretty crappy about myself as a person. My husband and I went to a black tie wedding. I had my makeup professionally done and I looked great. I got a ton of compliments and I felt great that day, but it wasn't just that day. I
Hmm.
took that energy and that positive boost and I rode it for months. And this
Wow.
business I'm in right now was born in part out of that. And it was because
Hmm.
I finally felt like I had the power and I felt good about myself and all of those things that gave me the confidence to make a huge change in my life. So
Wow,
you
that's
put
so
all those
cool.
things together, and those are the underpinnings, the pillars, if you want to call them, of my brand. So those values, anything you see me put out in content, anything you see me write about, do a live stream about, do a podcast about,
Hmm.
those are all things that can get tied back to those core values. And I can explain
Right.
them in terms of those core values every time as well.
Yeah, very cool. That's such a great story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I would think too, like you were saying, how it's helpful to go to your clients, if you have a question about logos. I mean, do you think could it be helpful to talk to some trusted, maybe clients who are, kind of closer, raving fans of yours to say, hey, so here's what I feel like here's some branding pillars that I've identified. Does this resonate with you? Is this communicating? Is this how you experience me?
Yeah. Well, yes and no to that question. I think you need to do a core value assessment on your own, because how other people perceive you might not be a true representation of you as a person if
Mm-hmm.
you haven't been fully vulnerable and fully, visible out there already. People might only
Right.
know one facet of you. I do think it's wise to run any major decisions past people who do, honor what you've already put out there. And in that case, yeah, a few close, trusted clients who, are the kind of clients who, will come back, the kind of clients you love to work with. There's a reason you love working with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And running things past them, it's always a good idea. I'm a big fan of surveying clients. I'm a big fan of just picking up the phone and calling certain clients. When my husband and I had a separate business together, and we were doing a visual rebrand, I narrowed it down to people we'd worked with in the past. It was a wedding photography business, so I picked 3 or 4 of our favorite clients over the last couple previous years, and 2 wedding coordinators that often referred us, because those are people who actually believed in our work. And
Right.
I already had a preference for which of the 2 I was going with, but I gave them just 2 choices because you don't want to give people too many options.
Mm-hmm.
But I took their input to heart and made a few small adjustments based on some feedback I got. I think
Right.
the key is not being like, hey, client A, what are the 4 values you think I value most?
Right.
It's too broad. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. And it might be a little too much pressure on them too.
Well, yeah, and they might not think about you in terms of values. They think about you in terms of how you make them feel, the product you produce, the results that you offer. So those results probably come from your values, but they probably don't think about them in those
Right.
terms.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Such good stuff there. Okay. So since I know that you have had some experience, being in front of the camera for video,
Mhm.
and you certainly watch a lot of other people, your clients and their videos and my videos and things like that. So what do you think what's the big difference between being in front of a camera for like photography in terms of your brand and your business, and in front of the camera when it's a video? So what goes, where does your eye go? Like, what are you thinking? What do you see people doing that's working and maybe not working?
Yeah, there's 2 main differences from the photographer's point of view, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I can pose somebody to a very minute change that makes a big difference in their overall visual, outcome
Mm-hmm.
with photography. But on video, you're moving. I'm
Yeah.
actually sitting here in an office chair, so I'm not moving that much, but I'm still moving a lot, and I talk with my hands, obviously. So
Yeah.
my shoulders are going to move, my chin's going to move, all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a chin trick to kind of hide any extra things going on down here for both me and my clients in
What? We
photography.
don't have that. Nobody has that.
Yeah,
We
well,
all
I
have very,
do.
very
And my
tight jaws.
camera's, see, here's my eye level, there's my camera, So for video, that
Me
works. For
too.
photography,
Yeah.
placing the camera above, it can work, but it can also make you look a little bit diminutive. And I think if I'm
Mm.
photographing a strong female client, I would
Mm-hmm.
never put the camera above her eye level because it makes it look like I'm looking down on her.
Oh,
So
interesting.
so that's something I would do, like in video, I put,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is more eye level, right? But
Right.
in video you can do that and I think it looks fine. And in photography, I have a personal problem with it. I know a lot of other photographers do that because it's the easiest way to hide a double chin.
Yeah.
I have a different way to do it. It involves looking kind of awkward in person,
Yeah,
which would
I've
look
been posed
horrible
like
on
that
video.
too. It feels so strange, but it looks really good.
Yeah, it feels
In
awful,
photographs.
and on video it would
Yeah,
look so silly.
yeah, yeah,
So that's one thing that's different.
yeah.
The other thing I think that's really really different in video, which I only realized this one a few weeks ago. I was at a weekend conference, a mentorship and leadership conference, and I saw lots of different speakers, and there were a lot of women that went up on stage with dangly loud earrings. And my girlfriend who was sitting next to me was like, okay, one day when we're on that stage, no dangly earrings. So I actually
Yeah,
sat upstairs right before we got started, and I did this, and I was like, okay, how loud are they? And these are really lightweight, so they're not loud, so I could get away with it. But uh,
yeah.
something when you're talking about like a stage, obviously there's bright
Mhm.
spotlights on you, and the dangly earrings were distracting because they kept
Yeah,
swaying, catching the light, but you could hear them through the microphone, and it got
yeah,
me thinking. I was like, oh, that's one more thing that's different on video or in person even
yeah. It's
than
sound.
photography. I don't hear or smell anything going on when I'm photographing and produce a
Right.
photograph. With video, you still don't smell, but you definitely hear.
Yeah,
So there's other things to consider that can have an
Mhm.
effect on your ultimate outcome that I wouldn't have to think about as a photographer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the sound is a huge thing. And it's something that a lot of people kind of underestimate how important sound is and your voice. And, if you are in an echoey room, if you
Hmm.
aren't mic'd and there's a lot of background noise, all those things can be super distracting. And it's really interesting that I know that you and I have similar issues with certain clients who might feel very self conscious in terms of their image for whatever reason. But I have the additional issue that comes up sometimes with clients who hate their voice and they have a really, really hard time. And a lot of us have experienced this on one level or another, like listening back to your voicemail used to be the answering machine, right? And we all cringe when we hear it. But some people really have that problem when they're looking at playbacks. And so it's another thing that sometimes I have to coach on is how to kind of make friends with listening to your voice. And I don't know if you kind of, work on this with your clients or, excuse me, even with yourself, but there's a way to kind of be a little bit critical, like not in terms of judgment, but in terms of the discerning eye or ear. Like, okay, so how am I showing up here? What is my voice doing? What am I doing with my hands or wiggling or, with my eyes? So that you can always get better because it's a craft. I think it's really something you can work on versus just being like, oh, I look horrible. Oh, I look so fat. Oh, my voice is horrible, which a lot of people go to. And I don't know, do you kind of experience that or coach on that as well?
I don't have to coach on voice and things like that so
Right.
much. Although I had to be coached on it, I mean, you and I have already talked about my biggest problem with video, which I consider shifty eyes. I have trouble staying looking at the camera. I want to look at your face, and I've always felt like the shifty eye syndrome is not super trustworthy. So it took me a little while to get over that, right? And you
Yeah.
helped me through that, but my husband is an audio engineer by training and he edits my podcast and he can be a little critical of what I'm doing voice wise. I have a few tics. I tend to smack my mouth or
Yeah.
lips when I get nervous, when I'm not quite sure what to say. I have no awareness of it whatsoever.
Right.
And even in terms of public speaking, a
Hmm.
mutual friend of ours actually was helping me kind of just overcome some of that. And for
Right.
me, being intensely prepared for something was the only way to deal with it while public speaking, because I seriously just no awareness.
I know. I know. When
But
you're in it, yeah.
I have
Go ahead.
some other verbal tics that Joe, my husband, has helped me through with the
Yeah.
podcast. And it's a thing because he's so aware of it. Obviously, he's sitting there editing. He doesn't have anything to look at. He's just
Right.
listening.
Right.
And I wasn't aware of it because I only ever heard the edited version of my podcast.
Yeah.
So one of the best ways when he feels like I've started ramping up and doing it a little bit more often again, he'll make me sit through part of like the original recording and hear it. So
Yeah.
at least I can maybe figure out when it's happening most. And that's that critique area that you were talking about, right? It's a craft.
Yes.
So if
Yeah.
I can hear when I am most likely to start doing some of those tick things, then I can at least try to be more aware while I'm talking. Now, I usually forget because I get very engrossed in my interviews,
Yeah.
but there's a
Yeah.
point at which you have to take responsibility because
Yeah.
my poor editor of a husband, it's not his job to correct everything I do. So, I mean, it is, but
Right.
it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Also, and this was something I really had to get over with on the podcast. When I first heard myself, I was like, "That's not what I sound like." And you mentioned people who don't like the sound of
Yeah.
their voice. For me, it wasn't so much that I didn't like it; it was more that I was not used to hearing my voice from the recorded side, only from how it
Right.
sounds within my
In your head.
head. And
Yeah.
obviously, using a proper microphone
Hmm.
is going to help, the overall quality. I have it pointed down, so it's not in the video here, but that is how I am,
Hmm.
being recorded right now. And it sounds a lot more like me with better quality,
Yep.
but I still don't feel
Yeah.
like it sounds the way I think I sound like.
I know, I know. And that's, I think, a little bit of the disconnect. And I actually recently, I was just talking with a friend who had a video done recently for her website. And she said, that it was, and she's a gorgeous, striking woman, right? And she said it really took her some getting used to see how she looks on camera. And she said, that's really not how I experienced myself, like how I thought I would look at all. And it's not
Mhm.
that it was bad, it was just not what she expected, because we don't spend a lot of time watching ourselves two-dimensionally, like in movement. You know, we might take selfies and stuff like that, but it really does take some getting used to. And I always try to tell people, you know, in my own business, that it's not about being perfect. That's not the goal. The goal is to just minimize the distracting elements so that you and your message and your branding, that you can shine through. And because we've all been there where we've watched videos or looked at photographs and you just can't let go of that one thing that's like, oh, it's so distracting. I mean,
Yeah.
she, you know, like with kids, and I just said it, teenagers, I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and they say like every 5 words. And we adults do it too, but it seems worse with younger generations. And it's
Mhm.
so distracting sometimes. So it's just about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, I absolutely think that's a huge thing that when you commit to being seen and being visible, whether it's in photos or video, you need to understand that I mean, assuming you're doing it for business, obviously, you
Mm-hmm.
need to understand that there's two things happening. Yes, you are the flagship of your brand. You are the face. You are, what's going to be seen, but it's also your message. And,
Yeah.
there's something I say to a lot of my clients, do you want approval or do you want results?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just telling someone this last night. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I was meeting with a potential client last night, and I was telling her, because she's very much like me, like, hey, this is my message, like, get on or get off, like
Mm-hmm.
a little more blunt, a little more black and white. And I was telling her how many of my clients, they're looking at their photos, and obviously we're critical of how we look, right? But
Right.
they're also deep in their heads, even if they're not willing to acknowledge it, they're picking out one person in their head, maybe a few people, and saying, would this person approve of the photo? And they rarely voice it to me, but I can always tell when it's happening. And
Mm.
every once in a while, I get a client who actually says it out loud. And this is an
Wow.
example from several months back. I had a client who was like, or she was trying to decide between a few different things, and I was like, I really like that one. It shows how sassy you are. And she was like, oh, my mom wouldn't want me to be sassy. And this
Wow.
is not what I said to her, because despite
Yeah.
how blunt I am, I do have some tact. What I wanted to say was, I'm sorry, is your mom benefiting and profiting from your business? Because if she isn't,
Yeah.
oh well, But I think
Yeah.
so many of us, we have those demon voices, right? And
Yeah.
they often take, the voice of, our mother, or, an ex-boyfriend who wasn't so nice, or, whatever. And it's kind of a thing like, you need to get over how you look if you want your message to get out there.
It's so
And
true.
I'm not saying put something out of you looking awful, because there's bad energy around that, and that won't
Mhm.
serve you either. But if you believe your message is important, if you believe that you have the potential to change lives or change the world, or enact any kind of good in this world by offering what you do, then you need to get over your appearance enough to put yourself out there.
Amen, sister. Amen.
Yeah, I need like a rah rah, right?
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, this has been such great stuff. And, like we know each other fairly well and we've talked about this stuff, but it's so great going even deeper and finding out more about, how you experience like photography and social media and branding. So I want to ask you if there's anything that you want to promote or talk about, an offering that you want everybody watching and listening to know about.
Yeah, I'd love that actually. I'm in the process of launching a membership platform, so it'll be on
Ooh.
my site, and there is a waitlist set up right now. You can go to BritneyGardner.com/waitlist. Super creative, I know. Uh, it's it's a program I launched this past summer called Social Media Simple Start that I wanted to add more to, and really the only way to do that was to turn it into a membership site. So
Hmm.
it's teaching clients how to be on brand in their social media, using the videos they've produced with people like you, using the photos that they've produced with people like me, and using the messaging that comes from those core pillars of your brand, and learning how to do that in minutes a day. I spend less than 15 minutes a day on social media, not counting broadcasts like this, of course, but
Yeah.
uh, there are ways you can be on brand in your social media and really share that message that I've been talking about.
Hmm.
And the membership site teaches you, first of all, how to do that. And then second of all, how to shave off the hours most people spend on Facebook in the name of promoting their business down to, like 2 minutes a day,
Yeah.
15 minutes a day if you want to interact. I mean, there
Yeah.
are really easy ways to do this. And that's kind of my kick right now, is teaching
Yeah.
people how to do this effectively and efficiently.
I'm all about efficiency. And so, yeah, I amen to that. It doesn't have to take hours. It doesn't have to be so difficult. And when you really kind of get it narrowed and you
Hmm.
know who you are, your brand, and you get it focused in and you know who your client is, it actually becomes pretty easy. So I want to thank you again so much. And just for people watching, so this platform didn't allow us to talk with people, as we were going, like you usually can on Facebook Live. So Brittany and I have talked about this, and we're both open to you just private message us or send us an email. So for me, it's my personal page, Jeannie Park. And where do you want them? I guess they can just message Brittany Gardner, right?
Yeah, you
Facebook.
can message. Yeah. It's facebook.com/Britney Gardner, and it's Britney. My parents thought they were being super creative, so I get to spell my name all the time.
Okay, cool. And we're also both offering, we're gifting a free 30-minute consultation. So if somebody,
Hmm.
you want to go deeper in terms of branding and, photography and imaging, or on the video side with me with videography and how to do that, just let us know. And we'd love to talk and help you guys out. So thanks again so much. And we'll see you later, Brittany. Probably
All
see you
right.
tomorrow.
Bye.
Okay, bye.